Hey, what's going on? Luke here. Over the last couple of days, I've been doing plenty of videos talking about the New South Wales Blues and in particular the Game 3 side for 2023. Now, I wanted to do a video talking about the Game 3 side in comparison to the previous games and just talk about whether this side is actually any better than Game 2 and Game 1. I'm going to be focusing on Game 2 there, the one I'm actually going to be making comparisons for. It was a do-or-die game, and obviously it being a must-win game, they're going to go ahead and pick the best possible side, at least in their eyes. So I thought it'd be interesting to take a look at the side and just figure out whether the Game 3 side is better or worse, or is it exactly the same. Going to be going through each individual position and sort of be going over just whether they're better or worse, essentially. So we're going to be doing a little comparison sort of video. We're going to be starting off with the fullback for Game 2 and Game 3, which is James Tedesco. It stays exactly the same. And it's funny because you think in a normal NRL side or even a State of Origin side, look at Queensland, for example, you'd feel like most of these are going to be the exact same. But New South Wales have made so many changes, and not just changes in terms of bringing new guys in, but they've also made like positional changes, guys who have been on the bench all series and now starting, and things like that. So obviously Tedesco is there, Brian To'o is there, Stephen Crichton remains in the side at O'Carr. Just the one change in the back line, you have Turbo up against Bradman Best. This one's kind of an interesting one because obviously Trbojevic, he's a better player than Bradman Best. On paper, it's a much better one, but in both the games, he ended up injured. Wasn't really that effective in Game 1, didn't really do too much. Has kind of had a lackluster season for Manly. He's been injured a lot. A lot of talk about whether he was actually fit. Meanwhile, Bradman Best has been okay for the Knights. I definitely wouldn't have him in the side. And obviously, he's not even a match for Trbojevic. There's a reason Bradman Best is, there's a lot of controversy around him. And the reason being is that, I don't even think he's the backup to Trbojevic, let alone backup to Latrell, backup to Campbell Graham, all that sort of stuff. He's way down the pecking order for me, and the fact he's in the side is kind of why there's been a lot of debate about this side. The rest of the side, though, I think we're gonna find out it's not as bad as what we probably think, but in terms of just the actual side, still, just because it's better than last game doesn't mean it's a good side. Moving on to 5'8", another change. Cody Walker comes in, Jerome White is out. Jerome White up against Cody Walker. I'm giving that to Cody Walker every day of the week. Maybe if Nathan Cleary's there, maybe I would be doing this video totally different. Maybe I wouldn't even be doing this video at all. I think Nathan Cleary and Jerome White, good little combination. Obviously, it doesn't really work too well in Origin, but in terms of on paper, it's a decent combination. Cody Walker up against Jerome White individually, though. Cody Walker smokes him. Absolutely smokes him every day of the week. Jerome White has shown that he can do it without Nathan Cleary at times. For Samoa, he's did it. Actually, probably State of Origin-wise, these guys are quite similar in terms of what they've actually shown in State of Origin. But we have Cody Walker, and we've got Mitchell Moses there, who remains in the side. But for me, Cody Walker, he's a much better 6 for New South Wales every day of the week, especially paired up with Mitchell Moses. I think they'll have a much better combination than Jerome White. So far, it's 1-1. We have Turbo being the better one for Game 2. We have Cody Walker being the better one for Game 3. Now, moving on to the forward pack, this is where there are a lot of changes, and some of them are quite strange too, because they're guys who are still in the side, and they have been in the side throughout the series, but they've kind of just moved positions and moved from the bench to the starting side. So I am going to be doing comparisons, but it is going to, I don't know, it might make things a little bit tricky in terms of actually comparing them. But we're going to start off with the front row. This one is a straight swap. We have Jake Trbojevic coming in for Junior Paulo. So Game 2 is Junior Paulo, Jake Trbojevic for Game 3. In my opinion, Jake Trbojevic is so much better. Junior Paulo, for me, one of the most overrated props in the game in terms of State of Origin-wise. I don't think I've ever seen him do anything in a State of Origin game. He's another one of those guys who doesn't really do the hard yards, and sort of his whole game revolves around offloads and ball playing and all that sort of stuff. That's his best asset. Obviously, he is a meter eater for the Parramatta Eels, but at the same time, he's not someone who I look at and I'm like, oh, he's so devastating. He can be, he just isn't though. So for me, Jake Trbojevic, he is the clear winner out of this one. At hooker, you got Damien Cook up against Robson, and this one's kind of interesting because they're both in the side regardless. It's just a matter of one game they started, one game off the bench. For this one, I'd prefer Robson to start, so I'm giving that to Game 2. It might even actually start in Game 3, so that's where it gets a little bit weird, but obviously, these guys are going to kind of cancel each other out, I guess. But yeah, Reece Robson takes it. Payne Haas up against Campbell Gillard. Payne Haas for sure. If Payne Haas is there, I don't think we see Campbell Gillard starting. I think that much is pretty certain. I think we might see Campbell Gillard in the side, although probably not considering how fit there is. But yeah, Payne Haas is him up against literally any other prop in the game. I'd still pick Payne Haas. So that's a pretty easy one. Then we also have Tyson Frizzell up against Liam Martin. Tyson Frizzell by no means has been bad in the State of Origin series. In fact, I think he's super unlucky to be dropped. And I think it's another case of just Fitler just I don't really understand his thought process on some of this. Like, I have a feeling he's gone, oh, Tyson Frizzell, he might not be there next year. Because it's like he certainly hasn't picked it on form. Because if he has, Tyson Frizzell would actually be there because I think he's been one of the better ones for New South Wales. So therefore, him not being in the side kind of reflects that it's not a form thing, but then other parts of the side, it does sort of reflect the form thing. But for me, Liam Martin, he has been the best forward in terms of New South Wales. So him in the starting side, I think is absolutely brilliant. It's just a case of I don't necessarily think it should have been at the expense of Tyson Frizzell, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, Liam Martin takes the win, he takes the dub for this one, and realistically, he should have been there from the start. In the number 12 for game 2, we had Hudson Young, and this time we have Keon Koloamatangi. For me, I'm going to go with Keon for this one. I think he's a better player. I would much prefer him in the side anyways. Although Hudson Young, I think, it's not really that big of a difference. If I'm completely honest with you, I thought Hudson Young was okay in game 2, and if they're picking for a future, I don't really understand dropping Hudson Young. I've kind of expressed this already, but in terms of a direct comparison, if I'm signing someone, I'm signing Koloamatangi for sure. So for me, Koloamatangi, I think he's more suited to State of Origin. I think he's more suited to the side that they've picked. Obviously, they've sort of gone with a Rabbitohs-themed side in terms of this one, with Damien Cook starting. Would have been interesting to see Latrell Mitchell there, potentially in the centres, maybe on his side as well. We could have Cody Walker, maybe Koloamatangi, Latrell, and Cam Murray. That would have been interesting. Speaking of Cam Murray, he's 13 for game 3 up against Isaiah Yeo. I much prefer Cameron Murray. I was pretty adamant about this. I think going into game 2, especially after game 2, that Isaiah Yeo needs to go. He hasn't gone fully. He's gone to the bench, and this is where things... I don't really know how to do the comparisons once you get to the bench, but we're going to do it anyways. I'm not going to go exactly in order. I'm going to go sort of like for likes and try and compare them. But just to reference the starting side, we'll sort of go through and we'll tally them up. So in terms of the starting side, game 3 up against game 2, I've given 4 wins to game 3, 3 wins to game 2. So it is pretty comparable, but I think we'll find things will be a little bit difficult in terms of the bench, because the bench features a lot of players that are featuring in game 3 and vice versa. You have obviously the switcheroo of Damien Cook and Reece Robson. I've given it to game 3 with Robson in terms of him on the bench. I just prefer Robson in the State of Origin arena. I would have said Damien Cook, but I actually did really like what I saw with Reece Robson. So it just feels strange to me that you've given him a start in game 2 and then you've dropped him to the bench. And then especially, I understand the thought process in terms of Cody Walker's there, Damien Cook. I get that, but in terms of, like I said, on one hand, they're picking guys like Bradman Best, so they're sort of going with the future, Koloamatangi and all that sort of stuff. And then on the other hand, they've dropped Reece Robson. I don't know if drop's the word, but they've moved Reece Robson to the bench. So it's like, what's his role going to be? Is he going to come on is he going to come in the first half, second half? He's going to get on at all? I'm not sure what they're going to do with Reece Robson if they don't end up starting him. But at this point, I do sort of prefer Reece Robson. So for this one, it kind of even things out, you know what I mean? At this point, it kind of feels redundant doing this one because we've already kind of done it. But yeah, obviously Reece Robson. The next one is Stefano up against Jacob Saifiti. Now, this is a very, very interesting one. Now, future-wise, Stefano is there. Ability-wise, Jacob Saifiti, depends on who you want to go with. For me, I would prefer Stefano in the side. I don't necessarily think he's a better player by any means. I think Saifiti's solid. I don't even think he's a guy who I would have picked. I didn't really have him in the mix. I think there's plenty of other props who could be there. But at the same time, Stefano, at least there's the thought process of, well, he's played one game going into game 3. I think he'd be a lot better and actually get an opportunity. That would be nice. So I would say Stefano would have been a better pick. Therefore, I'm giving it to Stefano. I'm just trying to use a bit of logic in terms of going forward and even the game itself. They're talking about picking a winning side. I don't think Stefano would have let you down, to be honest with you, in comparison to Jacob Saifiti. I don't think Saifiti's really done anything this season that kind of warrants him getting a recall, although he actually has been pretty good for New South Wales. Both the Saifiti boys have been pretty decent when they've played. But yeah, just in terms of my preference, I would have went with Stefano. The next one is obviously Cameron Murray and Isaiah Yeo. We've already discussed that one. I won't go into it too much, but in terms of comparing it, I'm just going to sort of give it to Murray just so we have a tally there. And then the last one is Liam Martin up against Gutherson. So game 2, Liam Martin, you got Gutherson game 3. The Gutherson one, I just don't understand at all. And you're kind of seeing what I mean, where it gets a little bit hard with the bench because you're not really not really picking like for likes. And the guys that we're sort of tallying up still are guys who I've picked them as my preference in the starting side for one game, and they're on the bench for the next one. So it does make it a little bit difficult, but end of the day, it does end up with us having a dead heat. 6-all between game 2 and game 3. Now, like I said, a lot of the things that sort of evened up a little bit were, the bench guys starting and, vice versa. But at the same time, with the starters from the 1 to 13, it was 4-3 for game 3 anyway. So it was still pretty close. And for me, it just goes to show you that the game 3 side isn't like that much better than game 2. It just feels like they've got a lot of the same players in there. They've just kind of changed their role. So it does show you that that might be all it needs to, have a much improved side. Maybe not, but yeah, there's been a lot of changes for the Blues. Some of them good, some of them bad, and this is pretty evident from it. But like I said, a lot of the better ones were just examples of players who were on the bench and they've now gone into the starting side. So I don't know what that really says about Freddie and the guys who pick the sides in terms of they've got to game 3 and they've realised, oh, these guys have been starting on the bench all series. Maybe we should start them and being our best players. Like, it's taken them 3 games for them to realise. And in some instances, these guys have been doing it for years and probably should have been starting. Meanwhile, we've had guys like Tarek Sims and that starting. But yeah, look, the point of this video was to just do a little bit of comparison and just see whether this side is actually as bad as what I thought. Because when I saw the game 3 side, I thought, oh my God, what are they doing? But you take the good with the bad. I feel like the back line, with Bradman Best in there, I feel like it looks a lot worse than what it probably is, if I'm being honest with you. It's just crazy how literally like one player in the back line, for me, just kind of really ruins the whole back line, because it doesn't really make sense that one player can be so influential. But Tommy out and Bradman Best in, it is such a big downgrade. Like, I just told you that I think Cody Walker is a much better player than Jerome Luai, fits the side a lot better. So you think, okay, they've made a good change in the halves, in my opinion. I know long-term going forward, it's not exactly great, but just in terms of an actual comparison between the two, I much prefer Mitchell Moses and Cody Walker to Jerome Luai and Mitchell Moses. But the fact that we've gone from Tommy to Bradman Best, it is such a letdown and such a downgrade that it kind of like ruins the rest of the side. And when we've just gone through position by position, the sides are it's very, very even, but it's just the ones that they have got wrong. They've gotten really, really wrong, in my opinion. The big ones, obviously, like Stefano, I think he's very unlucky. I just talked about Bradman Best. He's very, very fortunate to be in this side. But there's elements that I do really like in terms of the actual forward pack itself, the back row. I picked Reece Robson as being my favourite for the hooker, but I like Damien Cook. I would have had him in there from the start. I literally wouldn't have ever picked Reece Robson. So there's one thing that's a positive for Brad Fittler. He has blood Reece Robson, who I think did hold his own, but it's kind of like you've gone and picked him, he's held his own, he's looked good, and now you've dropped him back to the bench. So that's what I mean. Like, we've done a couple good things, we've done a couple bad things, and it's just the bad things just don't make a lot of sense. They're complete head scratches. So guys, I'm very interested to see what you guys think of the actual comparisons. I don't know if I did a good explanation of this and I did a good job sort of comparing them, but I just thought it'd be fun to just go through position by position. And I know it's hard because, like I said, a lot of guys are still in there. They might have just changed roles, but New South Wales have made a lot of changes, and it's been talked about New South Wales making a lot of changes. So I had to come in here and do a video like this. So there you go. Let me know in the comment section below. What are your thoughts on the New South Wales side? And also, I know I've had a lot of comments talking about it, but let me know, what are your thoughts? Who should they have picked? Is there anyone that is starting, should have been on the bench? Is there anyone that we're completely missing? Because I know a lot of the talk's Nico Hines and some of those sort of guys, but is there anyone outside the box who you think deserves an opportunity? Because I feel like there's quite a few. I mean, if they're given chances to guys like Bradman Best, I keep bringing him up, but like, that's the reality of the situation. You're picking guys who I don't necessarily think they should have been there, and that's, Tavita Pengai. It feels like every game there's been someone where you're like, how they get an opportunity. Even Stefano, like, I don't think he really deserved a spot in game 2. It was just more so, if you're going to pick him in game 2, pick him in game 3. But look, I'm going to wrap things up here. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit. Guys, hopefully you did enjoy that one. If you did, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. We're getting ever so close to 15,000 subscribers. Shout out to everybody who's already subscribed, but if you haven't already, if you can go and do that, that would be very much appreciated. Also, in terms of likes, the more likes, the better. It really grows the channel. In terms of actually growing the channel, I feel like the likes are super important. So if you can go ahead and do me a solid, go ahead and leave a like on it. Also, shout out to the members. Speaking speaking of people who have been helping out the channel and, growing the channel, I feel like the members really do help, as well as the super chatters. You're seeing them all on the screen right now. A lot of recurring names, a lot of familiar faces. Shout out to all you guys who've been supporting the channel monetarily, because it does mean a lot. I'd like to think it's obvious that it doesn't go unnoticed, but I just wanted to point out that it definitely doesn't go unnoticed for me. So shout out to you guys. Also, here's my social medias. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke on YT for the most part. Not even for the most part. It just straight up is Mr. Luke on YT. I keep thinking I've got a Facebook still, but I don't. But my Instagram, TikTok, Mr. Luke on YT. Give me a follow, give me an ad. You kind of might know you want to. Possibly, maybe give me a follow. Please give me a follow. Anyways, I'm going to wrap things up here. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more, and I'll see you in the next one. See yous.